wine bar in a pub. And every year, on the third Thursday of November, the Beaujolais Nouveau was released. And it got to a point, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point, we have to get Beaujolais Nouveau out the way. But it got to a point where Beaujolais Nouveau was becoming less exciting, let's put it that way. And I had to try and find a way to create interest. So what I did is I asked the auctioneer from the Hospice de Beaune auction, which is on the Sunday and the Beaujolais Nouveau is on the Thursday. I asked the auctioneer if he could auction the first glass of Beaujolais Nouveau at our pub, and sort of expropriating the launch of Beaujolais for the whole world, because obviously everybody was allowed to start selling at midnight, but I pretended that we were the first. And so it, of course, got a lot of publicity. And the first year we did it, we got a ridiculous amount of money for it. This was 1992, and we got about 25,000 Rand for it then. And so I thought, well, that's not what I was expecting. It's a huge amount. So I wrote to the Guinness Book of Records, and I had to verify it. There had to be proof and what have you, and they accepted it. And we ended up beating it many times. So this was the first time that we got the record. Most expensive glass of wine in the world. I should have looked. Perhaps it still stands. I don't know. But we went way over. We got up to about 12,000 francs. So it was probably about 40,000 Rand for a simple glass of Beaujolais Nouveau.
So
that's how
before
but anyway, yeah.
Alex, before we move on to present maybe Julien and Boris, if you would like just to share with our guests which bottles of wine, if they like to, they can start with and pour in their glass.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce Boris and then Julien. And whilst they're introducing their respective domains, we're going to drink one of their wines or taste one of their wines whilst they're talking. So Boris is going first, and we're going to...
I can't hear anything.
Somebody's not muted.
No, it's Matt. Sorry.
Okay, so the first wine we're going to try whilst Boris is talking about his domain is Château de la Chaize, and it's the Bruy la Chaize, which he'll explain to you in a minute. But just before I introduce them, a quick word on the Beaujolais and why we're focusing so much on it after Nick's introduction. So we currently have about 40 Beaujolais on our list, something which has obviously never been done in South Africa before. We have imported Beaujolais for about a decade, most of that time from Julien, from Domaines Piron, but also from Jean Foyard, the very famous Jean Foyard. And over the last few years, I've been wanting to really build the category, because I think that in our conditions in South Africa, A, for drinking, and B, for growing, I think we are so ideally poised for Gamay and for Beaujolais that I wanted to make it a focus. I also have a long tradition of drinking Beaujolais myself, since several generations in my family as importers into the UK. And I love Gamay. In South Africa, we have a lot of hot weather. Lighter reds are starting to be understood, and Gamay is the quintessential cool red wine to drink. And I think that it has a place in our vineyard, and we should be planting a lot more Gamay because it works in our type of climate and our granitic soils. So we have a lot in common with Gamay physically and geologically and climatically. So I think that it's something which needs to develop, and I, as a producer, am very much focusing on it. So we brought in 40 wines, which is quite comic, because French for 40, about 40 is quarantaine, and quarantaine also means quarantine. And of course, we brought it in this period of quarantine and isolation around the world. Just lost Boris. Oops. I was about to introduce it.
Oh, yeah.
At the wrong time to lose Boris.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to have to. Is he in the waiting room somewhere?
No, I can see him.
You can.
Okay. We can swap it around.
Yes, I hear. Sorry, but not very well. But it's okay now.
Okay. Let me.
There he is. There
he is. He's back. So can you take us on to the next page, please, Nick?
Yes, I just wanted to, before we move on, just one house rule or two that I just wanted to add. There is a chat in Zoom, so I'm going to moderate it. So if there are any questions to Boris, to Julien, to Alex that you would like me to ask, please just write it in the chat and I will then read them in sequence. When it comes to what the wines, each of you or most of you obviously have the wines in front of them. If there are wines, which surely there will be, that you will particularly like and you would like to order more, we have very limited amounts, and you can just send me a private message via the live chat, and I will manage allocations during the presentation. So that's, and then I will follow up after the presentation. Perfect, Alex. Sorry. Thank you. You can move on presenting Boris.
I'm going to introduce Boris, but before I hand over to him, I think I know Boris and I know his uncle. They're very modest people, so we're going to have to prize some information out of him. Château de la Chaize is one of the most historic buildings in France, and certainly in the Beaujolais region, which fell into disrepair. And the Gruy family have bought it and are restoring it, and they've got very ambitious plans for it, both in terms of the wine, but also the ecology, the way that they're bringing it into completely modern techniques for generating energy, so the domain is completely self-sufficient, and the quality of the wines. It's a really historic moment for Beaujolais to have this treasure of the region restored and producing wine again. So I want to give credit to Boris and to Christophe, his uncle, for doing this. It's a massive task, and I've been to the chateau twice. It's the most incredible building. The grounds are beautiful, and the restoration work they're doing is, I mean, it is, I don't know what it costs. I don't think you'll ever see your money back, but it's something that France will be proud of. And I know that you want to make it also a place for œnotourisme, so wine tourism. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Boris, who runs the domain and who's in charge of winemaking and viticulture, and is of the family that owns it. So over to you, Boris.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thanks to Nicolas also for this masterclass. I'm really happy, very glad to be with you all. Yes, thanks for let us the chance to taste together this wine. First of all, maybe I can just shortly present myself. So my name is Boris Gruy. I'm the estate manager of Château de la Chaize since 3 years. My uncle bought this estate in 2017, and with the idea to make ecological project, but even, as said Alex just before, to make a big renovation of the chateau and the winery. We have the longest cellar of the region, 108 meters. So it's a very massive and huge cellar and winery. And it's also, that's why we would like to make a big project around œnotourism, to receive people from abroad and to show to them these buildings, which are historic patrimony, historic buildings of France. And sorry. So just I would like to explain about ecology, what we want to do. We started to convert from agriculture, conventional agriculture, to organic the last year in 2019. And it takes 3 years to get the certification. We have 1 year more before to get the certification in the vintage 2022. And it's a long work. We have to uproot the vineyard to replant. It's long, but we are in the half of the job, and I hope the next 5-6 years will be at the end of this big change in the vineyard. We kept very old vines, The oldest one are 120 years old. And we are really proud about these vines. So we try to keep them as long as possible. It's very old and they don't have a big yeast, but they make very good wine. And this old vine are in the first cuvée that we have, cuvée of Bruy, lieu-dit La Chaize, because why La Chaize? We made all our wine in a single vineyard on the estates, and with some single vineyard after we made blend. But for this first cuvée, La Chaize, lieu-dit La Chaize, which is just behind the chateau. You can see here, maybe, I don't know if it's enough clear. Yes, just behind. Thank you very much. It's single vineyard with southeast exposure, and just on the right of the single on the plot that Alex showed, we have the very old vineyard, 120 years old. We make the wine of this cuvée with these two plots. And maybe, I don't know if we start to taste, Alex?
Yes, we're tasting.
Okay, so this wine, it's Bruy 2018. It's my second vintage when I arrived to Château de la Chaize. It was a very solar vintage, very sunny, very warm, and we can see the wine is dark, with a color of violin. And it makes also this vintage very strong and alcoholic wine, but with still a good balance of acidity, who gave wine with finally a good balance.
Tell us, Boris, about the size of the estate and the soil types.
We have mostly granitic soils, pink granite, which is the soil characteristic of Bruy appellation. We have different level of deepness. And this soil, it's a deep granitic soils. Sorry for my bad English. I'm not sure if it's correct.
That's correct.
It's a sand, so this soil, it's very fragile, and we have to take care when we work the vineyards. We have to take care about this.
What type of pruning do you have?
So this single part.
Right. What type of vines? What is the? C'est en gobelet?
Yes. No, it's cordon de Roya.
So this is
a big part is cordon. Yes, it's a big part in cordon de Roya and a small part in gobelet. The oldest one is still in gobelet.
So gobelet is bush vine.
Bush
Traditionally,
wine.
There's a lot of bush vine in Beaujolais.
Yes, but all the vineyard, it's like this, bush wine.
Bush vine, yeah. It's very similar to South Africa, you know, in years gone by. We're going to come back to the wines a little bit later, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the fermentation, etc. But can you just tell us a little bit about your project, just very quickly, about the project for energy and how you're going to be producing energy?
We want, and we started this year to be independent in energy, thermal and electrical energy. We started with thermal energy. We made geothermal forage. I don't know how you call this in English.
Well, you're drilling
installation,
yeah.
geothermal installation to make the thermal energy for the chateau, but even for the winery. The thermoregulation of the temperature of our vats are with this system.
Okay, so the whole idea is ecologically, you're
yes.
going to all of your vineyard is going to be organic, and you're using natural methods to create energy.
Exactly.
Just last thing, how big is the estate? Just give people an idea, because it's the largest estate in the Beaujolais.
Is the biggest estate of Beaujolais. We have 100 hectares of Bruy. The estate in total it's 350
Boris,
hectares.
We missed.
Yes?
We didn't hear how many hectares. We didn't hear you.
Sorry, I restart. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The estate is the biggest of Beaujolais. We have 350 hectares in 350 hectares, 20 in Fleury, 20 in Côte de Bruy, 100 in Bruy, and the rest is composed of forest and garden, building, etc.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We're going to come back to you a little bit later for the second wine, but we'll also be speaking to you as we go through the presentation. Okay. Next is Julien Revillon, who's an old friend from the Beaujolais, who is also from a winemaking family, of multi-generation vigneron family. And he has joined about 7 or 8 years ago, Dominique Piron. And Dominique I've known for over 30 years, probably, 33, 34 years. And Dominique, if I may talk about him, and then I'll pass over to Julien. Dominique, who is today president of the wine growers of Beaujolais, and very much revered and recognized for his role in the region. He was one of the rare vignerons during that era that Beaujolais fell out of favor, who continued to believe and acquired or managed to acquire other crus and build up a domain, which is today, I think I'm right in saying it's composed of 7 different crus, which is very unusual for one producer to own 7 different crus. Obviously also makes Beaujolais Village as well, and various wines. But I think the thing that's stood out for me following Dominique during this 30 odd years is how he never lost faith, how he managed to, by hook or by crook, always find a way to finance things. For example, the Chaize that we're going to be trying a little bit later, he bought with a very famous restaurateur, which I'm sure Julien will mention to us, a 3-star Michelin chef from Burgundy. They co-own it. And he's never given up on the region. And today the region is booming again, or beginning to boom again, let's put it that way. It's a resurgence, a renaissance of the region. And it's very fitting that Dominique should be the president of Beaujolais today. Now, he's also a man with a great amount of foresight. He doesn't have children, and he spotted a talent in Beaujolais that he wanted to take over his business over time. And so Julien has been acquiring the business gradually and will eventually acquire the whole business. But the Piron domain, the family, goes back to the 1500s, if I'm not mistaken, Julien. Let me bring you in. So everybody, I'm going to hand over.
1590, yeah.
1590, there you go. So let
So
me
as
hand
Alex said, hello. I am Julien Revillon. So as he told, I am the business partner of Dominique Piron. In fact, since this summer, I have acquired all the shares of the estate. So as Alex told, it's a very long family story in the Dominique family, because he is the 14th generation in his family to be winemaker in Morgon. But as he had no son or daughter to continue, I joined the winery in 2013. And since this year now, I am the sole owner, even if Dominique will continue with a part of his own vineyard. He will rebuild a new, not a new winery, but he will renovate also on all the chateau. So it's a new story for Dominique at 7. So me, I have all my origins in the Beaujolais. I also had some family in Saint-Amour, and my grandfather was also winemaker in Saint-Amour. But after that, it was lost, yes, because I am simply a big fan of wine. In fact, of all the wines, Beaujolais for sure, it's where I have my heart, but I am a real wine lover. And in my family, my grandfather was a Michelin star chef, and my uncle was a sommelier, and he started at Trois Gros, a very famous 3-star restaurant. And he also worked as sommelier at La Meloise, the 3-star of Burgundy. So I drink good wines for all my life. I started very young.
So whenever I visit...
So the estate...
Yeah. One second. I have to point out that Julien is one of the most generous men you'll ever meet when it comes to wine. And if you have a meal with Julien, he will open up, obviously Beaujolais, loves Beaujolais, but he's extremely generous and has a particular love of Burgundy as well.
So, in fact, when I joined Dominique, I was working before a little bit in different vineyards, and mainly in the Rhône Valley. But I was very interested in Dominique's estate because, as Alex said previously, Dominique had already started to vinify lots of different crus. And I think the best chance we have today is that we have in Beaujolais a fantastic geology. It's maybe one of the most complex geology for a wine region. And in fact, Beaujolais has been nominated by UNESCO as a geopark. It's the first one in the world, I think, that a vineyard, a full region is a geopark UNESCO. And why? It's just because the geology, it's more or less 500 million years old of different terroirs. So we have all the different rocks and terroir in the Beaujolais. I have some rocks here to show, you know, from the, I don't know if you see very well, but this one is blue. It's a blue stone from the Côte du Py. We have some gray, we have some granite like that, the quartz, and lots of argilo-calcaire terroir also. And me, I am a wine lover, as I told you, and what I like is that with our single grape, the Gamay, we can produce finally a lot of different types of wine if we want to do the simple job to be a good winemaker and to select the best terroir. You can have lots of different tastes with a glass of Gamay from the Beaujolais. For years, people just know the Beaujolais because of Beaujolais Nouveau. They know Gamay as a simple and easy, fruity wine, but it's not the only thing we are able to do in Beaujolais. And I think that what Alex said when he said, I represent 40 different wines of the Beaujolais in South Africa, is that he likes to show the diversity that we produce. And at Domaines Piron, we like to produce single vineyard. So first from the different crus, for sure. Chirouble is different from Rouillé, different from Moulin à Vent or Morgon. But what is even more interesting is that even in Morgon, when you have Morgon Les Charmes, Morgon Côte du Py, or Morgon Grand Cras, or Morgon Corcelette, it's always a different wine. And it's also the way we work and what we want to show and continue to, I would say, step by step, for the people we want to come back in the world of the best wine with our Gamay from the Beaujolais. So I don't know if you want to taste now or if you want me to speak a little bit more.
We're tasting
wine.
the Morgon au Cras.
So Morgon Grand Cras, yes. So as I told you, in Morgon we have lots of different terroirs. So maybe the most famous is Côte du Py. We are based in the Côte du Py in Morgon. So it's very old volcanic terroir with the blue stone. But at the bottom of this hill, there is another terroir. It's more, we call it a piémont, like in Italy, or it's very old alluvion from the hill of the Côte du Py. So it's a bit more sandy, but it's also a very, very poor terroir and also very acidic. And it's the place where Grand Cras is. So Grand Cras is the southern part of Morgon, and also the one with the lowest altitude in all the other parcel of Morgon. So in this place, we farm 4 hectares, 4.5 hectares, and we have made a parcellaire cuvée since when I arrived with Dominique, it was in 2013. Our first vintage for this single vineyard Morgon is 2013. So here I think the vintage is 8.
We've lost him.
The one you have, Morgon. So generally we say a bit, but also you will see it's very round and soft, very silky tannins, and it's very classic Morgon with aromas of cherry and the nut of cherry also.
What do you consider? What do you consider the ageability of good Morgon?
This is a good question, but I would say lots of people like to drink the Gamay quite early when it's very, very fruity. But honestly, to keep a Morgon more than 10 years, it's very, very, very easy. And we have vintages for 30 or 40 years in the winery, and some good vintages they can age for sure more than 30, 40 years.
Okay, we lost you a little bit on the quality.
Yes, 100. Sorry.
Sorry, Julien. We're losing you. The sound is cutting out. So we're going to go on to the next page. We'll come back to you. You've frozen. Your image is frozen as well. But let's go on to the next page. Thank you for that introduction. So here we go. We're going to go through some general information about the region before we come back to the different growers. You can all see the map of Beaujolais in front of you, I'm sure. The big area at the bottom there and up the east flank, green area, that is all generic Beaujolais. Up in the northeastern corner of Beaujolais is where you have the 10 crus. And those are the areas that you can see, Saint-Amour at the top and Julianas, going right down to Brouilly in the south of the cru. And then you have sandwiched between those areas, that's a sort of a sandy color here, or a beige color, is the Beaujolais village. So Beaujolais is composed of 3 levels, essentially. You have generic, village, and then the cru. And what's interesting is that I can hear somebody else is not muted there.
It's probably me. Yeah, I think it's just me at the moment.
Yeah, okay. So if you go on to the next page, just quickly, we can come back to this one.
Yeah.
Next one again, sorry. Keep going. There we go. What's interesting, too far, there you go, that one. So if you look at the image at the top right-hand side of the screen there, you'll see 2002 production and 2013 production. And what's happened over that era, I'm sorry, Nick, I'm hearing a lot of interference noise in the background.
Please, I'll mute myself and see.
Okay. So Beaujolais went through a period where it lost popularity, and I'd like to address that subject shortly. But about a quarter of all the vineyards of Beaujolais were ripped out. And in fact, the EU subsidized producers to rip it out. And there was an excess, there was a lake of wine. And what that has done is it's reduced the vineyard size in Beaujolais. And depending on what you read, it's between 16 and 18,000 hectares today. But what's interesting is that the area that's under the Cru Beaujolais has increased proportionately now. So it's about, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but it's about 35 to 40% of all production today. Is that right? Nobody's answering. Right, okay. So the Cru Beaujolais are, without a doubt, the most interesting part of the Beaujolais, and that's why I'm focusing on those today. The three-level stops at Cru. And so the first question I wanted to put to our two vignerons. Can you hear me, Julien and Boris? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
The question I want to put to you is there a discussion for there to be, at some point, a level above Cru, like Premier Cru or Grand Cru? Is there such a discussion in Beaujolais?
Yeah, yes. Before Grand Cru, you're right. We are searching to get Premier Cru. Some cru like Bruy, Côte de Bruy, but even Fleury or Juliena, I think, are starting to make a file for INAO. I don't know the translation in English.
It's the National Institute of Appellation Contrôlée in France.
And we need to make this kind of file. We have to make tasting, maps, analysis of prices. It takes a lot of time because we need anteriority to make this file. And usually it takes 10-15 years to get the level Premier Cru.
I have to say that I don't know if you have heard about that, but this year, Pouilly-Fuissé in Mâcon, so very close to us, can use now the Premier Cru for the first time. It's with this vintage. But as Boris said, the first thing we have to do is to start with the classification. And this is the most important. Classification of what? Classification of the different parcels, different lieux-dits. Yes. I would say different climat, also because we are in Burgundy, but it's exactly the thing that we have different lieux-dits with different names. And first we have to classify them. So we need a lot of tasting and also to show that this one is a higher price than this other one. And this inside the different cru, inside Bruy, inside Morgon, inside Fleury, we need to do the classification. And this is a long process. And also between the different winemakers, but after with INAO, which has to say, yes, it is okay. We can say now this one is better and maybe it can become a Premier Cru.
Is it happening in each of the cru, of the 10 cru?
As Boris said, no, not all of them, but I think the one who started, it was really Moulin à Vent. It's Moulin à Vent, Fleury, Bruy, Juliena, I didn't know, but on Morgon also, for sure, Morgon, we have the different climats were made by the father of Dominique in Morgon. So we have already Grand Cras, Les Charmes, Corcelette, Côte du Py. But the thing is that it has never been, they never had the validation from INAO, but we just have to take back and come back to this and to explain again, and I think this will happen. But what I would like to say also, it's something historical, because everyone knows the Grand Cru and the Premier Cru in Burgundy. But when this started also in, I think in 18th century, also all the vineyards in the Beaujolais were classified already. And when you see the very old books speaking of the Beaujolais, when you have, by example, a classification in Morgon, we already knew the different climat and they all were sold at different prices depending on the quality. So this is known for 200 years, but now we have to make this happen again, and this is a very big job with French law.
Okay, so there's 2 points I want to bring up here. First of all, just to explain, climat in French essentially means a defined vineyard area. It's a specified area, but it's not a premier cru. Okay, so for example, Morgon can have lots of different defined areas within it, such as Côte de Pie, Corselet, Grand Cru, etc. Okay, so people who don't know that, Morgon's not just one amorphous mass. It actually has identifiable parcels which haven't yet been separated into premier cru.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, Morgon is 101,000 hectares, and I think Brouilly is 1,200. They are the two biggest cru Beaujolais.
Alex, we have a question. I don't know if I can jump in. I don't know if you can see it also in the chat yourself, but I think there is a reason. They've just been asking, Shirley's asking if the reason it takes so long to classify a premier cru in Beaujolais, is it because each vintage needs to be assessed and in order to create consistency, or I would assume, or why is the process so long?
I'm going to answer quickly and then we'll hand over to the guys. The way that it now works is very, very slowly. It takes usually a couple of decades to finalize any what they call dossier, any submission, whether it's positive or negative, and then you've got lots of people who will appeal and what have you. But there's a whole load of different factors that have to be submitted, which is a lot of the historical information about the individual site, the geology, what distinguishes, how it's been premiumized, how you can justify that it's a high level. And they take all factors into account. So business as well as the natural, the geographical and geological. So it's a very complex submission that needs to happen, and it takes forever. But the reason I asked the questions, obviously I know that it's been going on, and I think it will be an interesting evolution of the Beaujolais when it does have the premier crus. So I don't know if that answers the question of the person who asked it, but the extension of that is, do you imagine that one day you will also have Grand Cru? Boris.
I really don't know, because it's a very long way. I don't know if I will see a Grand Cru in Beaujolais. I would like, of course, but it's a very long way, and I don't know. I really don't know. But I think we have soil and climate and identity to make Grand Cru in Beaujolais. I think so.
So, Julien,
some wines can be sold at a very high price, even if it's not Grand Cru. In Pomerol, there is no Grand Cru, and you have also fantastic wines. So
you're right.
It has to come from the producer and the terroir also, because, me, I started as a winemaker. I was 40 years old. Before, I was just a wine lover. And what I can say now is that I have understood with practice what is the terroir. The terroir is a thing that it's impossible to explain, but that a wine from a place and a vineyard is always better than the other one. And this, you can do what you want. It's always the same places which produce the best wines. So the classification is, for a winemaker, when he knows very well his production, is very easy to do. We know always where is the best terroir and where is the worst. The problem is that when you have to do that with all the different producers, it becomes much more complex, because everyone says, yes, my wine is better, or this is my parcel of vineyard, and I want it to be a premier cru. And it's the first thing that we have to deal with. In Pouilly-Fuissé, I think it was a big fight before they happened to have premier cru, because everyone wants to be premier cru.
Yeah. So there's a similar debate going on in Nuit Saint-Georges, and has been for the last 2 decades, because there's a move to create a Grand Cru in Nuit Saint-Georges. So of course, if you create one Grand Cru in Nuit Saint-Georges, everybody who's in the next door neighboring parcel is not going to be happy. Right, so there's a lot of politics involved.
Can I ask you something, Alex? on this map here specifically, you mentioned obviously the three tiers, the Beaujolais, the Beaujolais village, and the cru. From a topographical point of view, what is the difference between south and north? How does the landscape differ in the soil?
It's very, very different. It's much flatter. The soils are more sandy, and you get much more hilly relief in the north. Very much granitic soils. The wines in the south are very simple. They don't have the potential that the cru do. There's a reason for it. Julien, will you?
This is a question I would like to also to answer, but it's quite complex. The thing is that I don't know if you have some geological maps of Beaujolais, but me, I have some, but maybe difficult to show. So you can see on this map some different colors.
Yeah. And
you see the red, by example, it's the granite, very well known. But the green one is very old volcanic bluestones. The yellow is a classic argilo-calcaire from the Jurassic, and so on and so on. So
that looks like Morgon.
I would say that the geology is very. The south would be more argilo-calcaire, but it's not the only terroir, because also in the south you have some granite and you have also some bluestones, and in the north it's also more granitic, volcanic, but you also have some argilo-calcaire. So it's very complex. It's a very big mix. So I don't know if you can hear me well, but
argilo-calcaire is clay and limestone.
Clay and limestone, yes.
But also talk about the topography. So it's much flatter. C'est moins vallonné dans le sud.
Around
I'm not sure.
Bois, there is a big there are big hills, but maybe when you go closer to Ans, Villefranche, it's yes, it's flat. It's flatter.
Okay, the quality of the sound there with Julien is not great, but okay.
What I can say also is that some people have the vision of the region as very flat, but it's exactly the opposite. Beaujolais, you have lots of hills and lot of very steep slopes, and some places in the Beaujolais are as difficult to work as the Côte-Rôtie, and also more or less the same origins, because it's also volcanic. It's the Massif Central, the same mountain at the origins. And some places are very, very difficult to work, because the slope, it's 60%. So this is difficult to show when you don't come to the region.
It's one of the things.
The highest mountain in the Beaujolais is 1,000 meters high.
So it's one of the things that strikes people when they go to Beaujolais. I've taken numerous people to Beaujolais now, and they don't expect to see those very steep hills and the gradients that the vineyards are planted on. I took a group of people up to La Madone in Fleury, and we walked up to the statue, and it's a hell of a steep slope. It really is, and they don't have the same palissage that they do in the Rhône, because it's bush vine for the most part up there. But the slope is extremely steep. I don't know how they pick the grapes, let alone work the vineyards. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, and let me put this to you, Boris, is this is a question that I get asked a lot, and I have my answer, but I'm curious if I can ask both of you to answer this question one after the other. Is Beaujolais part of Burgundy or not?
That's a big question. It's not easy to answer to this. As I said before, I think we are our own identity, and even the landscape, the geology it's just, I mean, we are not exactly as Burgundy. Even if we are in the south of Burgundy with the same culture, but not for all, I think we are different than the Burgundy region, because of the diversity of the soil, because of the climate. We have less rain. Maybe we were talking about slope. Maybe we have a very big slope, not like in Burgundy. So I think Beaujolais and Burgundy are different regions, and I think we cannot say it's the same thing.
Julien?
For sure, I will have a different reply. So this is the map of the Greater Burgundy. And you have the Beaujolais in the south, but after you have Mâcon, and Côte Chalonnaise, and Côte de Beaune, Côte de Nuit. And on the top here, it's Chablis. Very long way from the other one. But you know that there is no frontier between the Beaujolais and Burgundy, and with law, it's the same region. It's the Greater Burgundy. But when Boris said also that we have our own typicity, and this is clear, we have our own typicity. But the grapes we use, the Gamay and Chardonnay, they are both the son and daughter of the Pinot Noir. We have lots of things in common. Yeah, but you know, Northern Rhône and Southern Rhône, it's much more different even than Beaujolais and the Côte d'Or. So for me, we are a part of Burgundy, but with our own typicity. And this is it's my reply. You know, in the past 50 years ago, all the winemakers, they were selling Morgon and Burgundy wines. And by law, we still have the right to produce Burgundy wines. It's not what I want to do, but it's possible with the Chardonnay to produce Burgundy. And for not so long, it's no more possible to declassify a Morgon or a Cru as a red Burgundy, but it was the case 10 years ago. But some people in Côte d'Or, they want us to. It's not this. The history is that Beaujolais is a part of Burgundy by law, and this has always been clear.
So let me just explain a few points that Julien raised to give you some context. So there's not a lot of white planted in the Beaujolais, and it's there's not a lot of white grapes planted in the Beaujolais, but it is almost entirely Chardonnay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to this day you are allowed to sell that Chardonnay as Bourgogne Blanc.
Yeah. And also Crémant de Bourgogne for sure. Yeah. 40% of Crémant de Bourgogne comes from the Beaujolais.
So recently there's been more planting of Chardonnay because growers can get a higher price for Bourgogne Blanc than they can for Beaujolais Village.
Yes, for sure.
And then
but it's still not very big, you know, it's less than 5%, maybe 4 or 5. And including the Crémant.
And also some people up in Saint-Amour, which overlap with Burgundy, can actually, you know, they can actually call it Burgundy as well. So the other thing is that the crus, as you pointed out, until a decade ago, in the classification, you could declassify a cru Beaujolais, for example, a Morgon. You could sell it. You could declassify it to Bourgogne Rouge, and that was always the
Bourgogne Gamay.
No,
but not before.
Before it used to be Bourgogne Rouge. Yeah. Now the distinction is Bourgogne Gamay.
And it's still possible, but with 30% only of the blend.
Okay, so there is a confusion even within the region as to whether or not it is part of Burgundy.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to point out, which I think many people may not know, I don't want to say most people because that's what Trump says. Most people never heard that. But there used to be Gamay in Burgundy in further north. And in fact, there still is, not a lot. And there's a wine called Passe du Grain. And Passe du Grain, for example, I have very good friends up in the Côte de Nuit who make beautiful Passe du Grain. And Passe du Grain is a blend of Gamay and Pinot Noir. But Gamay was outlawed from Burgundy during the great Dukes of Burgundy. It was Philippe le Hardy in the 1300s. I can't remember the name. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. But Philippe le Hardy banished Gamay from, you know, the Côte d'Or essentially.
Do you know why, Alex?
there's a wonderful quote. He called it the disloyal.
Yeah.
What was it? Yeah.
This is what people say, but the thing is that it was because the Duke of Burgundy, he was receiving the taxes on the Pinot Noir, and the taxes that people have to pay with Gamay, it was for another state. And that is why he wanted people to plant Pinot Noir and not Gamay, because he wanted to receive the money.
I didn't know.
You didn't know that.
But the French never pay taxes anyway, so I'm sure.
We paid so much.
Okay. So,
no, but more important than this, to be in Burgundy or not, for me, it's not a big deal. The thing is that we have to prove that with our Gamay, we can produce wine as good as Grand Cru Burgundy. And every day, some journalists say it's possible. Today, a journalist has published in France that he had tasted one of the most well-known Morgon producer, and he said that the wines are as good as Grand Cru Burgundy. And what we have to prove is this. And we will not prove that we produce good wine. It's people who have to enjoy it and say that it's very good. And here we will be very happy and keep our archetype of great Gamay on the terroir of Beaujolais.
But isn't that happening today? Do you not find, I mean, is it not a fact that Beaujolais is being recognized again by the top sommeliers in Paris, in Lyon, in London, in Tokyo, in New York?
All the young generation, yeah. Because people look more to minerality, complexity, finesse. They look more to this than to power, alcohol, tannic, and so.
And there's a more.
So it's more the style of what people like now.
It's a return to more natural style of wines, refreshing wines, more traditional approach. And not
natural. I don't know what is natural, you know.
No,
For me, nature is not good, is not bad. Nature is nature.
Okay, let's not
the worst poison is in the nature.
I think you know what I meant. I wasn't referring to a type of, school of thought. We have this slide, we have this diapo in front of us, which is something I want to discuss. Julien and I have been talking about this for the last 2 days because I didn't agree with this definition. It goes from the bottom, lighter, on the right-hand side, lighter, Saint-Amour, bolder at the top is Moulin à Vent. I think this is nonsense, I don't know where it came from. But
for me, it's very complicated to do a scale like this because a wine can be light and also very profound and mineral, even if the tannins are not strong. But it can be, for me, a strong wine, even if the tannins are light.
Can you explain, if you would, what characterizes the different crus? You don't have to do all 10, but maybe take 3 each and say what really defines that cru.
I would say for me, generally, the body, it's more a question of clay. If you have more clay, generally more power, more tannic, and so. But in some granitic soil, you can also have wines with a very good power. By example, Moulin à Vent can be very complex, profound, with a big body, but it's also on the granite. And in Morgon, it really depends where it is from. I told you that we have lots of different type of terroir, and wines can be sometimes more mineral and light, and sometimes much more powerful, like in the Côte du Py, by example. Chirouble is the easiest for the definition because it's only granite, high altitude, and very poor terroir, very mineral, very rocky. So it's not generally considered as a powerful wine, but for me it's a very classic Cru Beaujolais you have to discover. And it's a bit the same for me with Chaize. Chaize can be also very complex and born on granitic soil. Fleury, I love also because you have lots of different terroirs. And you know, I spoke of geology, but it's not because it's granite that it's clad. You know, a terroir can be great with every different kind of soil, and that is very interesting.
We've lost Julien again.
So, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's carry on.
I drink too much, and the connection is bad.
It's because you're not paying enough tax.
Welcome to Beaujolais.
Nick? I'm
Yes.
conscious of the time, so I was thinking that maybe we should get onto the tasting, further into the tasting. That's a beautiful. There you go. That's Boris. That's your home. I should have.
Yes. Built by.
Which one is your window, Boris?
Maybe just a word on the chateau. He was built by Jules Mansart, the architect of Louis XIV, and the garden was designed by André Le Nôtre, who was also the royal gardener, and he made, for example, the garden of Château de Versailles.
Fantastic. And I'm just going to ask you to look at the far left-hand side of the chateau, where there's that tree. There you go. So that is Boris's part of the chateau, and the window that's open on the first floor. Go up one floor.
Yes.
So I stayed in that room about a year ago because we were out.
Your hotel was closed.
We were out partying in Lyon, and when I got back to the hotel, they'd locked it. So I had to stay in Boris's lounge. So I stayed in that room. Anyway, so let's move on, please, Nick. Right, we've been through a little bit of the background of the chateau. Let's perhaps go on to Boris's second wine that we're tasting today.
Yes, Château de la Chaize, Côte de Brouilly. So is the other another appellation that we produce on the estate. Côte de Brouilly, still in a single vineyard. The name of this lieu-dit is Brûlier. Brûlier means burned, maybe burn in English, because we have a soft exposure, and usually it make a very good maturation of grape.
That's
and if we see the color of the wine, we have a wine very dark and intense. It's still the Solar vintage who made this also, but even the exposure. It's 60 years old vine on a soil of bluestone. It's the second soil of the estate. We have pink granite, but also bluestone. And this parcel, this appellation is located on the hill which called Montbrouilly. It's one of symbol of Beaujolais. It's a very beautiful hill, and the wine of this who come from this hill is very strong and powerful, and maybe we can taste it.
So I'm just going to jump in. First of all, when you have southern exposure in Beaujolais, that's the warmest slope. It's the opposite in South Africa. In South Africa, the southern slope is the coldest slope. So I just need to point that out to people. So when you say that it's called...
You're right. Sorry, yes.
No, you're absolutely right. It's because that was the slope that received the most heat from the sun.
Yes, and the bluestone gets the warm during the day and give it during the night and make a beautiful maturation of grape. We have not to wait too long because after it's we have very alcoholic wines and maybe too much. So when we harvest, we we be careful to harvest the good day.
Boris, can you tell us a little bit about fermentation and carbonic maceration, semi-carbonic, stemming?
Yes, so we use semi-carbonic maceration, vinification, but not only. We destem also, and for this cuvée, we keep 10% of whole clusters and 90% destemmed. We just realize pump overs on this cuvée and 1 or 2 punch down. So we don't use artificial, not artificial, I don't know the name, but we use only wild yeast to make the fermentation. And we have a duration of vatting around 2 weeks.
Okay. And can you summarize perhaps what distinguishes Brouilly from Côte de Brouilly?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Qu'est-ce qui distingue les deux appellations, Brouilly et Côte de Brouilly?
We have for our vineyard, I mean, because for the other I don't really know, but between our vineyard on Brouilly, we have only pink granites. And in Côte de Brouilly, we have the blue stone, and it makes very different wines, maybe lighter in Brouilly and maybe stronger, more powerful on Côte de Brouilly.
So typically, Côte de Brouilly is more structured than Brouilly.
Yes, that's it.
And yes. I think that's safe to say for not just for you, that's for the two different appellations, in fact. Yeah.
Alex, I think we lost Julien, so I think you might want to introduce his second wine, perhaps. While his...
Well, let's maybe go on to one of the other wines, so that if he comes back in, he can do his own.
I have a question actually from one of our viewers, and Julien is also back. In the meantime, while he's connecting, maybe I can ask the question, and then Boris can answer them yourself. So Leszek is asking that Morgon has a perceived elevated status to others. If Julien and Boris have any short insight on this.
Is Julien back?
I think so. Sorry.
Okay, he's back.
Problem.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
very well.
Can you see me?
We can see your nose and your glasses. There you go. We can see you. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So I don't know, Alex, if you want to repeat that question.
So the question essentially is, Morgon appears to be quite a famous appellation, one of the most famous. Why is it that Morgon is so reputed?
Why is there a good reputation in Morgon?
Why is it more known than the others?
Yeah. So my question will be, my reply will be maybe a bit strange for you, but I would say that for me, the thing is that people also are very important. And in the last 30 or 20, 30 years, lots of winemakers in Morgon have made a very good job. And each with his different style, but I would say some people like Lapierre or Foyard or Dominique Piron or Jean-Marc Burgot or David. We have lots of very good winemakers here in Morgon. I think for sure the terroir is very good, but also the people have worked a lot to make the promotion of the appellation. And there is no cave cooperative in Morgon, and all the winemakers, they had to sell the wines. And I think that is why today the appellation is very famous. And I am sure that also because...
Lost him again. I think, okay, he made a very good point.
Complexity of the terroir.
He's back.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a very good point. If I look back 30 years and longer, I think the cru that was the most popular and the most famous was Fleury. Certainly in North America and the UK and Scandinavia, Fleury was the most popular wine outside of Beaujolais Nouveau.
And you know, people in Fleury were much more richer than the people in Morgon.
But when Beaujolais fell on hard times, I think Morgon has been one of the most solid appellations in keeping to the quality and keeping to their principles and being strong personalities to drive the identity of the cru as well. And I think some of the other cru, so if you take Julien, for example, I don't know of any strong name from Julien.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So yeah. I think the point very well made. Boris, your opinion?
About Morgon, I totally agree with what said Julien just before. There is, first of all, the fact that there is not a cave cooperative and it push the winemakers to sell themselves their wine, help to show, to give a good picture. I don't know if it's correct to the vineyards, and we have great producer on this appellation. I think also to Daniel Boulan, which is maybe the old school of the winemaking, but all these producers are their own style, and I really like their wines. So I totally agree about the fact that Morgon is known because of the producer also.
Can I just point to this picture? It's very good because you can actually see the slant, the slope of this vineyard. And also if you look to the far side of the picture, you can see on the other slope on the other side. So you get an idea of the topography of this.
This is in Fleury.
Okay.
Okay. So
is it a cadol just behind, or it's
yes. Okay. A granitic cadol.
So cadol is the name that you give to the little structures in the vineyards.
Exactly. Made for the winemaker to go to have a shelter to protect against the rain or the sun.
Yeah. In South African, it's a pompstasie.
Okay.
That's not. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest we do is we do the Chirouble next, if you don't mind, and we'll come back to the Chenin afterwards. So can we go to the Chirouble?
Pauline.
Why are you laughing?
We like Pauline.
It's a friend. It's a good person.
Okay.
Good girl.
So, because Pauline's not with us, would you like to introduce the domain, please?
Maybe I don't really know the domain. It's in Chirouble, but maybe Julien can say a better presentation than me.
I don't know neither, but I think she has more or less 6 or 7 hectares, no, something like that, in the heart of Chirouble from his family. Domaine de la Grosse Pierre, and so she's doing also a traditional winemaking, and today in Chirouble she's one of the new face of the appellation, and more and more well known.
I think she started. I'm not sure.
Very silky wine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think, but I'm not sure. But I think she started to convert some parcel to make organic viticulture, organic winemaking.
So she's taken over from her family, from her father. She's specifically making Chirouble. She also has her own wine that she makes, Green Midi. I don't know if you tried it.
Yes, you're right.
So that's her own project. That's Pauline Passot on her own.
Yes.
Domaine de la Grosse Pierre is her family estate that she's now in charge of. She's now making the wine. but she was also previously, she was a sommelier as well.
Sommelier, yeah.
Yeah, and she worked internationally. She worked in various different countries, including in Ireland. It's one of my favorite places. And she came back to the family when it was time for her to take over. She's made wine in different parts of the world as well, like a South African. So she's more of the type of winemaker that we're familiar with in South Africa for the younger generation. And she's come back to the region, and now she's taken over the family domain. And Chirouble doesn't have the outstanding names like an appellation like Morgon. So I think she's fast becoming one of the star winemakers in her area. And you already mentioned this earlier, Julien, but one of the things I love about Chirouble, that there are so many different types of Beaujolais, which is why I tried to get you to explain the different crus. But Chirouble...
So Chirouble, yes, is a very homogeneous appellation. I mean that it's 100% granite, higher altitude. So I would say started from 350 meters high to 500, more than 500 meters high. So sometimes in the past it was much more difficult to have a good maturity for the wines. And the terroir is pure granitic and so very rocky and very few clay. The terroir is very poor. So it is why it makes generally very soft wines, but very pure, very mineral and very complex. Me, I like very much the terroir of Chirouble. And for years, it was very well known because Duboeuf was a very big salesman for the Chirouble, and he was selling lots of wines in the bistro and the bars in Paris. But now that the influence of Duboeuf is less and less important, I would say the appellation has started to fall, and Pauline is maybe one who can make Chirouble great again.
Make Chirouble great again. Oh, fantastic. The thing about Chirouble as well, with the character of Chirouble, is it's very friendly. It has beautiful acidity and that lovely primary fruit that you associate with Beaujolais and the sucrosity. And so I love to serve it chilled, as you do with all Beaujolais. But it's one of the crus that you just want to drink a liter of. It's very inviting. So this is the first time it's ever come to South Africa, obviously, and this is the 28 vintage and the 2018 vintage, which is tending to make riper style wines, very dark colored. But the thing that you'll see with all of these wines is there's this beautiful purple hue with Gamay, and the more purple, the more fresh, the more refreshing the wine, the more balanced the wine, and they're all underpinned by this beautiful acidity. And that's one of the great characteristics of Gamay. It's never heavy. Even if you've got 14 degrees alcohol in a riper vintage like this, you still have this beautiful quality of refreshing wine. I was talking with my business partner, Jacques de Klerk, earlier about these wines. And the fact that they have this low pH, which keeps this sort of purple hue alive, makes the wine so refreshing, is something which makes Gamay an incredibly drinkable wine. It's the history of Gamay was always about social occasions, and in the bouchons of Lyon, the restaurants of Lyon, it was served in pichet, in carafes. It's a very sociable wine because it has these qualities which make it so drinkable. You don't have to think about it and decant it 3 hours beforehand. You can open and you can enjoy it. That said, we also know that there's great ageability in good Beaujolais as well. Sorry.
I've got two questions. One very relevant one. Darren is asking if this wine is partially or fully unfiltered.
Yes, she never filters her wine. So it's unfined and unfiltered. It's unfined and unfiltered. And she also natural fermentation. She's also working towards organic status. And she does partial carbonic maceration as well, yes.
Yes, and Matt is asking if you can gate crash to your house after the presentation.
Right, not. I'm 7.5 months into isolation, so no.
No, sorry, Matt. Okay, so Should we go on to the next one?
I think we should probably do the next wine from Julien.
Yeah.
The Chêne.
Perfect.
Quartz.
Chêne? Yeah.
Yeah, c'est le 17. Hein?
17, yes. Different vintage, very different style also. So Chêne is also one of our parcellaire cuvées, which had a really very singular taste, I would say. And this is why we call it parcellaire cuvée. It's not blended with any other. So I would say also that it's, for me, the sense of to be a winemaker is exactly the sentence is to blend or not to blend. That is the quickest. If I 75, 80 hectares and with many different cuvées, I is really this: do we have to blend or not to blend? And when we find a vineyard or a parcel that has a real complex power, finesse, or so, and this makes that our job becomes very interesting. So in Chêne, we farm 10 hectares, and Chêne Quartz is our best cuvée. So as you understand, the name quartz, what is a quartz? A quartz is generally it comes from the granite because it's one of the what the granite is composed. The granite. So Chêne first is Revillon. It's less big than the Côte Rôtie. It's I think 230 hectares. So it's very small, very steep, and very rocky. And the taste of Chêne is always very, and the wine is always very light in terms of tannins, but very complex in terms of aromas. And the taste is also very mineral and even a little bit salty. So it's very, very interesting wines for the sommelier. And most of the sommeliers are in love with this cuvée. We get every year more than 90 points with all the major wine magazines, Wine Enthusiast, Wine Spectator, Venus, James Suckling, and so on. So this makes this wine makes that is one of our flagship cuvées at the Domaines with Morgon Côte du Py. So
Julien,
Burgundy, generally the fermentation, it's we do more, I would say, Burgundy fermentation. Also, we destem a lot. We keep a whole bunch. Generally, it's around 10-15% in the different cuvées. And after we destem and we do pigeage and remontage, and the maceration lasts around, I would say, a bit more than 2 weeks, 18 days, 20 days sometimes. And after we press and we age the wine a little bit in an oak barrel, but very light.
So Julien, one of the question, or one of the points I wanted to make is that even though it's less concentrated, it's lighter, it's more elegant, it still ages very well. This is one of your wines that ages the best from my own experience.
For me, I'm sure Chêne can age very well, but I think not as long as Morgon. And for me, Chêne, when it comes to more than 10, 12 years, it's for me, it's a very good time and maximum. I don't want to keep the wine more. And I will say generally, all the wines produced on the granitic soil, I'm not sure they age as well as the wine that we produce in the volcanic bluestone, by example, where we have more clay, more power, and so. Just to tell you something about the terroir, also I speak a lot about the terroir, but to give you an idea, the argilo-calcaire, the clay and limestone that you have, by example, in Burgundy, but also in the Beaujolais, it was exactly the same age, it's Jurassic. It's 160 million years old. but the granite, it's much more older. The granite, it's around 320 million years old. So much more older. And the blue stones that you have in the Côte de Brouilly, but also in Morgon, in the Côte du Py, where you have more clay, it's less acidic, there's a lot of magnesium inside, and this is 420 million years old. It's very, very old rocky terroir. So here for the Sienna quartz, I would say it's around 280 million years old to 300 million years old.
Fantastic. Seeing as you're bringing those figures to light, for your information, in South Africa, our granitic soils are 600 million years old. Africa came first.
Also very acidic and with very few clay, very poor.
He didn't get that, I think.
That's never mind. Everybody else did. All right, can we, because time is an issue, can we move on to the Moulin à Vent? So we've got the Paul Janin, Saprolite Moulin à Vent. Hold on a sec.
The saprolite is the other word to explain that it is a granite which is becoming sand.
It's decomposing granite, is what he's trying to say, I think.
Granite that become granitic sand. Yes, saprolite.
Okay, Julien, we're not hearing you very well, unfortunately. We can't see you.
Yeah, I've just hid his video. Try and make it a bit better.
Saprolite is decomposed granite, very similar to what we have here, in fact. One of the things I wanted to say about Moulin à Vent is, when I've shown this to people so far, and it's not been in the Cape for very long, and being in isolation, I haven't seen that many people, but the people that I have shown it to, who've been to my house and my garden, they've all said they didn't expect Beaujolais to be so structured when it came to the Moulin à Vent. And I think one of the things that really distinguishes this wine and sets it aside is the fact that it really does have a great intensity of tannin and spiciness. And I think people are not necessarily expecting that from Beaujolais. And in fact, that is a characteristic of Beaujolais, and it's one of the things I love about Beaujolais. It's very deep. Unfortunately, Boris and Julien don't have this wine to taste. Are you familiar with Paul Janin?
Yes, a little, but I don't know this cuvée Saprolite. I've never tried, but it seems very, very good.
A little bit.
Yeah. So, what are you saying, Julien? Let's see if we can hear you.
He said he knows a little bit.
Okay, so Paul Janin is also working organically. He's working a lot of the vineyards that he owns. So this Eric, by the way, sorry, the current generation is Eric that we saw the picture of. And a lot of the vineyards he's working with are old vines, as is often the case. We have two cuvées that we brought in from Janin. This one, the Saprolite, and then the Héritage. And the Héritage are from vines which are up to a century old, so they're 80 years to 100 years old, just over 100 years. And then this vineyard is principally 60 years old plus. So these are all gobelets, so bush vines, and also 2018 vintage. I keep saying 2018. Nick, do you have this wine or not?
I don't, but actually I had a question in general on the 6 wines that our viewers have at home. So I mean, one thing which is obviously magnificent about Beaujolais and makes it so exciting as well is there's these 6 wines among them are so radically different as well in style, huh? Would you say? It's quite a journey.
Are you asking? Sorry?
I'm asking you. I mean, the 6 wines you've selected for our viewers.
Of course, and the whole point is that we've chosen 6 different crus. There are 10 crus in Beaujolais. Today we've covered 6. And the objective of this tasting was to demonstrate how completely different the character of each of these wines is, and how they go from complexity in an engaging lighter style wine to complexity in a much more structured wine. And that's how Beaujolais can be declined through the different crus. It's not simple wine. You know, the era of the reputation of Beaujolais Nouveau, which killed the region to a large extent and damaged the reputation, that's all in the past. The conversation today is the re-emergence of the Beaujolais region, the greatness of the cru, and the incredible versatility of the different terroirs. I think that's probably the notion that people should leave this tasting with, is that Beaujolais has incredible terroirs, which are very individual and are far more complex with a friendly grape like Gamay than people possibly imagine.
Which is, as we are gonna slowly open the floor of also to questions to the producers and to yourself, one thing I like to invite our our viewers, is to also leave perhaps a comment of how they perceived Beaujolais before this talk and how they perceive it now after they've actually tasted through these 6 different wines. Because I would like to actually get some impressions, which I find quite interesting. So
the last major point that I'd like to make is, if you look at the quality of the wines that we've tasted today, and you consider the yields and the culture and everything else are very similar to Burgundy, and the costs apart from the land, but you know, everything else, and you look at the extraordinary value that you get in these wines, where else in France, where else in the world do you get wines of this class, of this complexity, that are still at this incredibly affordable level? And I don't expect Beaujolais will ever follow, you know, what's happened in the Grand Crus of Burgundy, but we have to anticipate that Beaujolais can't be this cheap forever. So we're in a golden age at the moment as a consumer, and that Beaujolais is really getting its act together. I mean, all the producers that we brought in, you know, some of them are very established names like, you know, Jean Foyat. Some of them are, you know, 10th generation or 14th generation in, like Dominique Piron, now taken over by Julien. Others are new arrivals like Boris and people like Pauline as well. But Beaujolais is in this throe of a renaissance.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in modern times. We've seen it in some regions. So we've seen it in Piemonte.
Yes, and there's a parallel with the Swartland in South Africa.
Right. So, I mean, to be able today to have access to these wines that tomorrow are going to be classified Grand Crus or Premier Crus and are going to be highly regarded is phenomenal.
So I wanted to make that clear because, you know, I think people sometimes don't take Beaujolais seriously because it's not expensive enough.
It's a very good point.
Maybe.
So what do you think about that, Boris?
About the prices of Beaujolais?
Yes. Are they going to increase?
I think it's if you want to drink good wine, I mean cheap and with high quality, it's, I think, the good wine to choose, Beaujolais. And you have the choice between many different cru. You can choose if you want something strong, less strong, fruity, and you can even find old vintage for nothing or almost nothing. I know some estates sell old vintages for 20, 30 euros. I don't know in rents how much is it, but it's not a lot when we compare with Burgundy or North Valley. Yeah. So it's a good region to have a great pleasure to drink.
Can I ask you one last question, if I may, before I ask Julien? What is your ambition for Château de la Chaize? Because your family is putting a huge amount of capital into it. What is your ambition for your property?
We would like to make international estates, I mean known around our border. We would like to be an example for the Beaujolais, an example for the ecological project, And for my part, for my opinion, I would like to make the best wine as possible I can do.
Well, I think from what I've seen, you guys are succeeding. If I compare the 2018 vintage with the 2016s that I tasted, the progress that you've made is astonishing in such a short space of time.
Thank you. We try to increase each year. We try to be best each year, even if sometimes it's not easy, because as we do works on the winery, it's not so easy to make wine around the dust. But for this year, normally it's last year with rocks, and the next year to 2021, we will have a beautiful winery to make wine.
Well, the renovations have been incredible, and the respect for the traditions of the stone masonry and carpentry are extraordinary. Boris was supposed to be coming to South Africa during our winter. We had an itinerary planned, but unfortunately, due to COVID, he couldn't come. But you're going to be coming, so a number of people watching this, you will meet. We've got some chefs and some private customers, some distributors watching this, and I know that you will be coming next year, so you'll get to meet those people.
I really hope to come. Ready?
We will. You had your ticket. I know you did.
I have a question. I have another question, Alex, which is quite interesting.
Yep.
So Jeremy is asking that he recalls that years ago, wine critics and professionals were saying that the only Beaujolais cru that could age somewhat was Moulin à Vent, and that today things have changed and the perception is it's very different. So what has changed? So what have the winemaking styles changed? So the technology improved? So what has changed, and why are now the wines more ageable and more serious?
I don't think that it was the only appellation. It was not the only cru that could age. That's my answer.
And so in terms of drinkability, would you think the wines were ready to drink before, ready to drink now? Is there a difference in terms of how they're made in style?
I think that the producers that have always made good wine haven't changed a lot at all. I've done a vertical at Foyard, for example, where we did almost 20 vintages. We did about 16 vintages, and we went back. I took some 4 South African customers with me, and we went back to I think it was 1999, and the 2000 vintage, which wasn't a great vintage, the 2000 vintage of that tasting was my favorite wine, and it wasn't over the hill either, which was extraordinary. And this was 2 years ago.
So it's probably just that today they get more visibility.
And you heard Julien say that they have wines which are 30, 40 years old, which are What's interesting is the older they get, the more they taste like Burgundy. By the way, Julien, you're taking over, or you have now taken ownership of one of the most famous estates of Beaujolais, which has been a huge contributor to the renaissance or the renewal of the reputation of Beaujolais. What is your ambition as the new owner of Domaines Piron? What do you want to do that hasn't been done already?
This is a very interesting question, but I would say first to continue to give pleasure to the customer, because we do this job because we like this. We like the wine, we like to eat, we like to share, we like to drink, we like to compare, we like to taste all the time. But also, if there is one thing I would like to do in my life of a winemaker, I would say is to have a gamay in the all of the best wines of France. This would be for me a great achievement. You know, I was younger, when I turned 15, with Château Latour, Louis Chave or Gérard Chave. And there was no gamay inside. And I still wonder why. and I would love one day to have one wine of Gamay in a book of the best wines of France. That would be a great achievement. But I like also the fact that people can continue to enjoy the value for money, or also, as I sometimes say, the terroir. So I like both.
Thank you. We lost some of that, unfortunately, because of the internet. I think we understood most of it.
Yeah, I mean, we have Gamay already as the most expensive glass of wine in 1992. So now next is going to be on the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Maybe
this gives me a lot of ideas, you know.
Maybe if we buy lots of Beaujolais in South Africa, you can install fiber for your internet in the Beaujolais. Nick,
yes.
I see there's quite a few questions in the chat. Have you covered everything?
Morgon.
Yes, we've addressed them all. As far as I know, I think we had quite a diversified audience. Some people have grouped together like 6-8 friends and opened the case and are now enjoying dinner. So it's been it's been quite amazing to see how everyone kind of approached this tasting. And I think we also sorry.
I have one last point, and then I'm going to hand over to you to sign off. And that is that I want to just make people think about this for a moment. We've had 2 lockdowns so far where the purchasing of wine has been forbidden. It's not excluded that we will get a 3rd one.
Yeah, you're right.
There are already sort of ruminations and rumors of the fact that this might happen if, with the 2nd wave and what have you. So my point is, stock up now. Be ready.
Buy lots of Beaujolais for the summer.
It's summertime in South Africa, so you don't want to be stocking up with big Cabernets and heavy Shiraz and what have you. You want some beautiful, refined, elegant, juicy, complex, amazing Beaujolais for your summer. If you're locked at home, stick it in your fridge. So this is your opportunity. That was my pitch.
So on that note, yeah, completely agree. I think from the wines we had on allocation during the presentation, we nearly sold out as far as I can see from my notes. So it's been a great success, and obviously it's been very contagious. To hear the experience and to no, it's as I always say during these masterclasses, it is such a privilege to be able to put together amazing wine lovers like Julien and chateau owners like Boris and they from all over the world, and just feel as we can travel even if virtually in such a difficult time. So I just want to thank our 2 guests first and foremost. We were supposed to chat for an hour. We chatting for 2. And someone's
somebody's having a party.
Someone's having a party. Yes. So Darren says there are 11 of them together. They're thanking us. So I think we have 25 listeners, with probably 200 people in total. So Julien and Boris, thank you so much for presenting your wines, your stories, for dedicating us your time. And we really hope that I can visit together with Alex very soon. And to everyone else, thank you for your time, for your passion, for following us. And it's really a privilege to be able to present to you everything. I will send the presentation. We haven't been able to go through each single page, but it will be available for everyone. And if you still want to purchase wines, obviously after that, you can always then reply to me. And then obviously, Alex, thank you so much for always putting so much hard work in not only bringing the wines in, but conveying the story of the producers that you meet.
I'll drink to that. Cheers.
Yes.
Thank you, Boris. Merci,
Yes.
Julien.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
very
everyone.
much, Nicolo,
Thank you.
Alex.
All right.
Have an amazing,
See you next year.
have an amazing evening.
Thanks a lot.
L'année prochaine. On se voit l'année prochaine.
Ça
Bye
marche.
bye. Ciao.
Bye.
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 Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everyone. Bye,
Bye.
Beaujolais.
Bye, Alex. Cheers.